Hello, this is the video for Chapter 4, Lesson 3. In this lesson, we're going to be taking a look at point-slope form. So in our previous lesson, we studied the slope-intercept form as a linear equation. Well, today there's another type of linear equation, but the name is point-slope form. And this name is key to what the equation is talking about. So point-slope form simply means that in your equation, you're identifying the point and you're identifying the slope. So point slope form, the point slope form of an equation, uh, point slope form of an equation of a non-vertical line. So it's not vertical with slope m and through point x and y. But we're going to identify these points as one of the points. So we're going to put a 1 next to it, x1 and y1. The equation is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x2. And so, or x1, sorry, x1. Okay, so this 1 right here, I'm going to highlight it, is the point that you're identifying. So you're identifying one point and you're classifying the slope as well as one of your coordinates from a specific point. So why does this work? Why does this equation work? Well, if we know that slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and we move this over by multiplying on both sides. Remember, we can get rid of something by multiplying on both sides. So it would cancel over here, and then it would be over here, x2 minus x1. Well, it looks, I'm going to rewrite this. What we have now is x2 minus x1 times m equals y2 minus y1. We look at our equation above, it really is very similar, except for we don't have the 2, y2, and the x2. That's gone. So when we're identifying our slope, really what the slope is describing is knowing one point and looking to make an equation to find the other points. And we're dropping these 2's on your second point to make it just a more general equation. So if we drop the 2's and then we flip it around, like this will go on this side. So that we have y2. Oh, drop the 2's, right? So the 2's gone. Y minus y1 equals, and I'm going to put the m in front, m times x minus x1. This actually is the exact same equation as we wrote above right here. And it matches, right? So you can see the equation actually derives from rewriting your slope equation in just a different way. Now that's just the background, so it's not super important that you know all this, but you know that every equation, like we talked about the other day, a parent function, a parent equation is the original equation. And so this is just a kind of like it's a family function. So it is in the same family of equations. However, it's just written in different format. And so all these equations have something in common and they come from somewhere. So let's kind of apply this idea here of this point slope form, okay? A line passes through 8, -4, and has a slope of 2, 3. What is an equation in point slope form of the line? So let's review the point slope form. It is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now this slope, or this The slope m is identified in our information. So we're going to replace 2 over 3 with m, or m with 2 over 3. And then we can identify this y1 and x1 is actually given to us here. So that's all our equation is going to be replacing. We're going to identify, well, in this point, what's your x and y? Y is -4. So we would rewrite this equation as y minus -4 equals 2/3 times x minus 8. Because the standard equation from the template, basically from this, is subtraction. So we're going to keep that as minus. Now, we don't want to have a negative minus a negative, right? This right here, we can combine that. So a better way to rewrite that is just by adding the opposite, making it y plus 4 equals 2/3 times x minus 8. And this would be your equation in point slope form. You've got your point, and then you've got your slope. Looking at problem 2. What is the graph of the equation of y plus 6 equals -4/5 times x minus 4? So the first thing we need to identify is the slope. I'm going to put that negative on top and make this -4/5. If we review, it's going down 4 to the right 5. So these arrows can help us remember the movement that's happening with the slope. Then what is our point? Our one point that we are going to identify is in the equation. It is 6 and -4, or -4. So let's rethink. Is this actually a +6 or a -6 in our ordered pair? And is this a +4 or a -4? Well, if the original equation was saying that it is y minus y1, that means if I am not subtracting here, my y is actually -6. And if in my original equation, it's x minus x1, this is subtraction, which matches the original parent function, parent equation. This would now be 4, +4. But this goes with the x. So the x is 4, and this goes with the y. So the y is -6, and this is 4, -6. Which means when I graph my line, I'm going to plot my point at 4, -6, 1, 2, 3, 4, going down 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is down here. And then I'm going to use my slope to graph. It's going down 4 to the right 5, which makes me plot a point somewhere down here. And that's off my graph. So let's rethink this slope. We talked about how we could rewrite this as for -5, and it's still the same value, but now we're going the opposite direction. So this is going up 4 to the left 5. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. To the left 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that is my point in which I'm going to connect my other points to make my line, and use a straight edge if you can. I don't have a straight edge here, but that is now my line. Problem 3, write the equation of the line in point slope form that goes through the points -3, 0 and 5, 2. All right, let's review our equation. It's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now this time, you're given 2 points instead of 1, and you don't have a slope. So the first thing we have to do is identify and solve for the slope. The way we solve for slope, remember, is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to replace my, I might just call this one my first point, x1, y1. This is my x2, y2. And I'm going to plug this stuff in, 2 minus 0 over 5 minus -3. And so it is 2 over, add the opposite, 2 over 8 which simplifies to 1/4. So it's 1/4 as my slope. So now that we found our slope, we have to identify one point to put in our equation because we really only need a y1 and an x1. We only need 1 point, and that's why the other x and y is not labeled with a 2. So I'm going to pick this first point that I have here. I'm going to do -3, 0, which means when I write my equation, y minus y1, I'm going to replace the y1 with 0. And then I'm going to insert my slope, 1/4, times x minus -3. Now remember, when I'm writing my -3, I'm going to combine it with that subtraction sign, so it becomes a +3. And if I were to simplify this even more, I could rewrite this as just y equals 1/4 times x plus 3, because I don't have to put that 0 there. The 0 doesn't mean anything. And so now my equation is y equals 1/4 times x plus 3. If I wanted to use the other point, then all I would do is change the x1 and the y1. So I'd write this as y minus 2 equals 1/4 times x minus 5. Because my original points were negative, my equation that I'm going to use is going to be, it's going to stay as a subtraction sign. And this would be another alternative for a point slope form. It says write the above equations in slope intercept form. So slope intercept form, if you remember, we're going to write it as y equals mx plus b. So we actually have to, what we can see here is that it's very, very, very close. I just have this parentheses. So honestly, if I distribute this 1/4 into everything, it will be in an equation that's the form of something times x plus something. So if I distribute this 1/4, it will be 1/4 times x. And then I need to add that to 1/4 times 3. So 1/4 times 3, I'm going to write this as 3/1, so that's just a little more clear, equals 3/4. So 1/4 distributed into multiplying 3 would be plus 3/4. And that is my slope-intercept form. If I were to use this equation, I would do a very similar thing, but I would have to get rid of this -2 and bring it over to the other side. So first off, I would distribute. And then I would have y minus 2 equals 1/4 times x minus 5/4, because 1/4 times 5 is 5/4. Then I need to add 2 on both sides. So this is going back to our foundational skills with solving an algebraic equation or solving for a certain variable. I'm solving for y to be on one side. So now I have 1/4 x. And combine my like terms. What's -5/4 plus 2/1. I could write that 2/1 if I want to just make sure that this is having a common denominator. I'd have to multiply 2/1 times 4, I guess. So this would have to be 8/4, right, to make it 2/1. And then when I add them, add the opposite, it would be, or sorry, like, let's see, -5 plus 2. It should be minus, or plus, sorry, this would be plus 8/4. And so then this would be negative or positive 3/4. So that's plus 3/4. And that is my equation. So if I look at this, y equals 1/4 x plus 3/4, that is the exact same equation I have over here. Y equals 1/4 x plus 3/4. So they end up having the same exact equation. All right, problem 4, using a table to write an equation. This time we have some information given to us. A table shows the number of gallons of water, Y, in a tank after X hours. The relationship is linear. So it's telling us the relationship's going to be a line, straight line somehow. What is an equation in point slope form that models this data? So there's a few things we have to think through. If we were to like graph this on a graph, we would see a line, probably looking like this. And what's going on the bottom here is the time, and what's on the top on the y-axis is the gallons. And as the time goes up, the gallons are going up. Now, these all represent points on my graph, right? 2 and 3,320 all represent a point. So look at each part of this XY as one point. So technically you have like 4 points you can choose from in order to write the point slope equation. However, we don't have the slope. So the first thing we always have to do is make sure we can find the slope, because without the slope, we can't write our equation. And so remember, the slope is the change of the y over the change of the x. So I'm just going to pick like these 2 points, and let me use a highlighter. I'm going to pick these 2 points. So I'm going to write that as my slope rise over run. So I'm actually going to subtract going this way, because then I'm going to have smaller numbers to work, or I'm going to have positive numbers to work with. So I'm going to write this as 4,570 minus 3,320 over 3 minus 2. When I subtract it, I end up, let me get my calculator out. I have my calculator. Bit here. You can do the same with me. It's 1,250 over 1, which means my slope is going up 1,250 per hour. And this first question, what does the slope represent? Oh, I should probably write the equation first. But the slope represents the water increases at 1,250 gallons per hour. So it's the rate at which the water is being added to the tank in gallons per hour. So we look at this. It is gallons per 1 hour. So let's see if I can write oh, no, not working for me. I wonder if there's a way I can type it. No, not working for me. So I'm gonna have to handwrite this, or you could, just audio listen and then you handwrite it in. I'm gonna say it again. The slope represents the rate at which water is being added to the tank in gallons per hour. Okay, that's what the slope represents. Let's go back to finishing our equation. When we're writing our equation, we just have to identify one point for point slope. So let's just identify the point. Let's just pick the first one. And so that would be at 2 and then 3,320. And now to write it as point slope form, it's going to be y minus 3,320 equals 1,250 is the slope times x minus 2. That is your equation for point slope form. Now, let's go back to our next question. Write the equation in slope intercept form. So we wrote it in point slope form, but they're now asking us to write it in the form of y equals mx plus b. And so first thing we know that's different between these two equations is for the points or the slope intercept form, my y is by itself on one side and there are no parentheses. Like that's the difference between the two, right? There's y by itself on one side and there's no parentheses. So the first thing, let's distribute this and get rid of our parentheses because that's going to help us keep working this problem out. So we have y minus 3,320 equals 1,250 x minus the 2 multiplied 1,250 times 2, 2,500. Then I'm going to add 3,320 on both sides so that x or y is by itself. Go over here. Y is gone, or this extra stuff is gone, y is by itself. And when I add the two together, it's 820. So this will be 1,250 plus 820. And now this is in, oh, I forgot the x here. This is x. And this is now in y equals mx plus b form. And then the question says, what does the y-intercept represent? So what does this 820 represent? That represents, if I were drawing on the graph, 820, that's where my line's going to start, right? It's not starting at 0 like I kind of estimated over here. It actually is starting at 820. And remember, the units that are representing the y-axis are gallons, and this is at time. So that means at 0 time, it's at 820 gallons, 820 gallons. So that means that the volume of the water in my tank when I start this experiment or whatever this calculation is 820. So it is how much water, you can write this down. I'm not going to write it. It's take me too long, but it is how much water was already in the tank before we started timing. So it's the original amount of water that was in the tank, 820 gallons. All right, that's all I have for today. Your homework is to do the 4-3 skills practice. Potentially I might make another video where I go over some of this stuff. Actually, I'm just going to talk about it now. So looking at this homework, this first section says write an equation in point slope form for the line that passes through the given point with the slope provided. So you're just turning these pictures, these graphs into point slope form. And then these next 6 problems is to write them in point slope form, being only given the point and the slope where you don't have the visual, but I think you can do that without much problem. Now, numbers 10 through 18, it says write the equation in standard form. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. You've had a quiz over this already, but just to remind you, we are rewriting this equation in ax plus by equals c. That is what standard form is. Then this next part, write an equation in slope-intercept form. That is writing it as y equals mx plus b. So you've got to be familiar with these terms. When I say slope-intercept form, when I say standard form, what does that mean? You should already in your head be thinking, oh, I know what that is. That's this type of equation. Slope-intercept form, oh, I know what this is. That's this type of equation. That's something you should start to have memorized by the end of this chapter. But you're not solving for anything. You're just readjusting, rewriting the problems and into the form of standard form and slope-intercept form. That's all I have for today. And I will see you next time.